now move to our closing. And as you know, all good things must come to an end. Um, First facilitator Claire will lead us through a creative integration activity. And at this time, please turn your attention to Claire.
Thank you. Um, all right. So we're going to do a little, as Lalitha said, creative activity. And so the first thing I invite you to do is to find any thoughts or feelings inside you that tell you you are not an artist, you're not creative, you're bad at drawing, you're bad at singing, you're bad at acting. Take that, and if you can, just like say, I hear you. I know you're telling me that for many complex reasons. I'm gonna like set you aside over here because you're not gonna be useful to me right now. And see if you can find your younger self that knows that all humans are creative in different ways, and that it's not a performative thing. It's not about getting something right. It's about like embodying and exploring a certain aspect of being a human. There's many aspects of being human. There's our intellectual selves, our sexual selves, our creative selves, and we all have all those things, right? So that's what we're going to be exploring today, setting aside those self-criticisms just to get to enjoy this aspect of our humanity. The creative exercise we're going to be doing is going to be one that involves drawing. So if you could just take the next 30 seconds to make sure you have paper and some kind of writing implement with you. And also, or you can like, if you have paint on your computer, you can draw in paint with your mouse. So I'm just going to pause for a sec while people make sure they have something like that on hand. All right. So we're going to do a little drawing warm-up activity that I will guide you all through. And I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to do it in paint so that you all can see what I'm doing. So let me share that. There we go. Okay. So the first thing I would like you to do is draw a rectangle on your piece of paper like this. You can see it's going to be messy because drawing in paint is not easy. So don't worry too much about making it perfect. You've got your little rectangle, and then you're going to draw this little curve. It'll look like something like this. And then just give yourself a little stick figure on this side. My gosh, it's so hard to draw in paint. And now what I want you to do is to use your creative self to draw something across this gap that will help this person get from one side to the other. And be as creative as you're able to be. It really could be anything. So I'm going to mute myself for a minute and a half while folks play around with that, drawing that. We're not going to show it to each other. It's just for you. All right. Hopefully you had some fun drawing that. We'll do one more warm-up drawing exercise. Go ahead and draw another rectangle similar to the first one. And this time you're going to draw sort of a little hill. And I invite you to give this top of a head some kind of hair. So I will pause again for 60 seconds to a minute and a half while you draw some kind of hair, and it could have decorations in it. It could have a hat, anything you want on top of this person's head. All right. That's it for our warm-up. So before we do our main drawing activity, we're going to do just a short visualization to give us a little bit of inspiration. So get as comfy as you can wherever you're seated or standing. Maybe you're laying down in your house or at your office. That's totally fine. All of that is good. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes, because sometimes visualizing is a little easier when you don't have your sight, if you are a seeing person. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can have that soft gaze in front of you, sort of an unfocused gaze. I'm going to close my eyes as I guide us through this. And first, you will settle in where you are a little bit. I encourage you to really feel the force of gravity. To feel the way your body is pressing against any surfaces you're touching. So that may be the backs of your legs against a chair. That may be your arms resting against your body or against the ground. It may be the bottoms of your feet touching the ground. And take a deep breath. And on the exhale, see if you can relax and rest even more against these surfaces. So inhale and exhale, releasing even further. One more time, inhaling, exhaling, and relaxing even further. Seeing if there's any holding you're doing that you don't need to be doing. Letting gravity hold that for you. And I want you now to take a moment to use your mind's eye to imagine, given everything you heard today, everything you thought about or got excited about or questioned, and think about what you would like prevention to look like after today in the future. So some ways that you can build that image would include, what colors come to mind when you think about a beautiful world of prevention work in the future? What textures do you imagine? What people or plants or animals are present? What is the emotional quality in this future world of prevention? What are the feelings you have, the energy, the vibe? What what kinds of sounds do you hear? And what kinds of smells are there in this prevention work you're doing or witnessing? What kind of weather, what type of environment are you in? Are you inside a building? Are you outside in nature? Are you in motion between places? What activities are you doing? Are you talking? Are you hugging? Are you dancing? Are you alone or with other people? What are the other people doing if you're not alone? How do you feel right now, where you are and with the activities that you're doing? How does your body feel? How does your heart feel? Just take a few more moments to build any other aspects of this visualization that I haven't touched on. It doesn't have to be super concrete. It could be an impression. We didn't talk about tastes. Are there any tastes you sense with this future world of prevention? All right, I'm going to invite you to let that image settle. Feel your body against the surfaces again, and slowly come back. Open your eyes if they're closed gently. If your eyes are already open, maybe bring them back to the screen. And we're going to do our final drawing activity from this visualization. So taking a fresh piece of paper or whatever your drawing surface is, I want you to imagine that you meet an alien from another planet, and you're trying to tell them about this prevention work that you do, but you don't have a shared verbal language. So you decide to explain it in symbols to this alien. And you know you have to use very simple drawings to do your best to convey to this alien the prevention work that you're excited about doing in the future. I invite you to draw 3 symbols. Limit yourself to 3 symbols. All rules can be broken. You can toss out any of the things that I'm saying, but this is my invitation to you because I personally love a little bit of a container when I'm being asked to be creative so that I don't get overwhelmed. So 3 symbols that you can draw to help this alien understand the magical transformative prevention work you are hoping to do in the future. I will give you all 5 minutes to do that. Take your time, think it through. If you finish early, that's okay, but 5 minutes starting now. If you have any questions, please speak up or put it in the chat. I'll keep my eye on the chat. All right, so I'm curious now if there's anybody who might be excited or interested in holding their image up to us and sharing a little bit about what they drew. I know we're a big group, so it can be a little intimidating. Or if you don't want to show us the drawing, you could just tell us about it.
I don't mind sharing. My virtual background won't let me actually show you. I also appreciate parameters when being creative, so I did try to stay within the 3 symbols notion, and also took to heart the kind of concept that you built around communicating this to an alien And so, you know, I just drew these like really simplistic kind of person figures, um, sort of in opposition to each other. And so what was predominantly communicated in the first symbol is that there's something opposing them, there's something causing a lack of communication or anything to happen between them from happening. Then the second symbol was a little more simplistic, and I think given like lots more time, I could probably come up with something to symbolize kind of growing compassion and transition and like that moment. But it's just sort of a cycle of two arrows. I felt like arrows were simple enough of a symbol that like even if maybe the Salian culture doesn't have arrows, they get that it's directional, right? And so that there's the concept of that middle symbol is just that something transitional is happening here. And then the same figures are in the third symbol turned towards each other. And so yeah, it's extremely simplistic, but hopefully communicating that like there's an inability for like our people to have to function. I know Tammy talked about dysfunction and that word, but I really try to use it in the truest sense where it's like there's the functionality has ceased, right? And so kind of just the point of the process being a return of that function.
I love that so much. I love how it told a narrative, like your three symbols really told a story. That's really lovely. Thank you for being willing to share that. I think we maybe have time for one other person if there's anybody else who feels like sharing.
If no one else is there, I'll say something. I did the three symbols, which was a heart, the sun, and then I had some little stick people holding hands, and there was like a yurt. So the goal was for the alien to see that, you know, everything we do is with love, and the sun is a universal symbol. So, but the holding of the hands and the building of the yurt was showing cooperation. So we will work together.
I love that. Yeah, the sort of like looking for universal symbols and finding the pieces that allow for that cooperation to occur. Creatures building together seems like a great symbol of cooperation. Well, thank you all so much for participating in this activity with me. Hopefully it was entertaining at the end of a long training, and I will pass it back to my hosts.
Thank you, Claire, for that beautiful creative activity. And now, before you leave today's session, be sure to complete the evaluation. Your feedback is very important to us. And now we'll turn the floor over to our town weaver, Renee Kim, for our closing.
Hello, everyone. I want to give you a little more information about some of the bits and pieces of my story, along with a closing reading. As time moved on, I decided that I needed to reconnect with my heritage and my roots and go back to Korea. It was an epic trip, to say the least. I realized that this piece is what was missing from my story. The chance to hear sounds of a familiar language, to smell and eat the foods of my ancestors, and to again observe how Korean I was and how Korean I was not. I came back to Oregon jobless and worked a series of temp jobs and got a call one day about a job at the Victims Assistance Office with the district attorney, but I would be housed in a law enforcement agency. I coordinated a large federal grant to place victim advocates in law enforcement agencies, and this is what is now known as co-located advocacy. My first day at the police department was very different than my first day at the DV program. My on-site supervisor welcomed me and got me lunch and introduced me to everyone, and it was really fun. What wasn't so fun was when one of the officers asked me if I was the new radical feminist working there, which of course I said yes. And then later that day, another person gave me a lecture about the town's family values. While I was at this job, I was asked to be on an attorney general's task force to create a request for proposal for civil legal assistance for survivors of domestic violence. And I really had no idea what I was doing on this committee. However, I met my future boss there, and she asked me if I would be interested in being a funder and administering the Stop Violence Against Women Act for the grant for the state of Oregon. I said, no, thanks. I like my current job. However, a lively conversation ensued, and I did apply for that job on the last day the application was due, and I got it. This is where I learned to I learned to dislike spreadsheets, math, long meetings, etc. I want to say a few words about the VAWA state administrator meetings that I used to attend all over the US, at least from my historical perspective. I often felt the same way at those meetings as I did at the local VAWA advisory board meetings. I was usually the only person of color. In fact, at some meetings, people would ask me, oh, are you from Hawaii? And I would answer back and say, no, I'm from Oregon. And at one meeting during a wine and cheese reception, someone asked me how I got to the conference because they didn't know that Portland, Oregon had an airport. I just looked at that person and said, I rode my horse here. I thought, why am I at this wine and cheese reception when we won't even pay for a kid's birthday cake at shelter? I would often think, how can I dismantle this hierarchy and put it back together with some balance and harmony? It's a question that I still cannot answer today. And I was also thinking about leaving this job too. Now, I want you to reflect on some of the jobs that you have had and ask yourself these questions. Am I receiving the support I need? What does shifting power in systems look like to you? Am I giving myself enough space in my life to do other things besides just work? Is it time for me to take a journey to who I really am? And how does it align with my mission of my work in domestic violence? Please don't stress about answering any of these questions because you have a lifetime to ponder them. I want you to know that I believe that we are the change makers in this space, and we are the ones who are going to take the work of radical prevention to the next level. I also want to thank you for being here today with all of us. And I would also like to read a closing reading called Calling the Circle. It has always been scary to step into the circle of firelight, to show up in the company of strangers, to ask or to offer it. Our hearts race. Will we have the courage to see the world? The risks we take in the 21st century are based on risks human beings took thousands of years ago. We are not different from our ancestors. They are still here, coded inside of us. They are, I believe, cheering us on. Again, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it, and I will get the questions that I asked you all to you tomorrow. Thank you.
Again, we thank you all for attending, and don't forget to fill out our survey. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.